Hello, welcome to Maths by Miss B. Today we're going to be looking at solving simultaneous equations using the elimination method. There's two methods that you could use to solve simultaneous equations. You could use this elimination method. The second method is the substitution method. We'll be looking at the substitution method in one of the next set of videos that I will be uploading. So we're solving these simultaneous equations. We're solving these equations simultaneously, so to speak, and we have two linear equations. We have variables, we have the x variable and we have the y. So the aim is to find the value of x and the value of y, which when I substitute back into this equation will give me the answer of 5. And when I use the same x and the y value in here, it should give us a 4. So that's why we're trying to solve these simultaneously. To solve simultaneous equations, what we need to do is eliminate one of the variables. Either eliminate the x or eliminate the y. And then you've just left with one variable and it becomes easier to solve. Okay, so let's start with this one. So I'm going to label the first equation as equation number 1, second one as equation number 2. This is just a process I'm going to teach you now. What we need to do is, in this case, I'm going to subtract the second equation from the first. Subtract the second equation from the first and watch what happens. We're doing x, take away 2x. That will leave me with a negative 1x. For the y's, I've got a positive 3y, and I'm going to subtract a positive 3y. That gives me 0y. So we've got no y's there. And then we've got 5, take away 4, that gives 1. What we can do is just take away, get rid of this now, because we've got no y. So we've got an equation where we've got minus x equals 1. So we need to work out the value of x. The missing number in front of the x is 1 there, so it's minus 1 times x. So to get rid of that minus 1, or times minus 1, you need to do the opposite calculation, which would be to divide by a negative 1. Don't forget we need to do the same thing to both sides. Once we divide by a negative 1, it leaves us with x on the left hand side, and 1 divided by a negative 1 will give a negative 1. So now that we have a value for the x, what we can do is substitute this value of x equals negative 1 into one of the equations that we started off with to help us work out the y. So I'm going to substitute x equals minus 1 into this equation number 1. Okay, so into equation number 1. So equation number 1 was x plus 3y equals 5. So in place of the x, I'm going to put a negative 1, and then it's going to be plus 3y equals 5. So remember, we're trying to solve for what y is. To solve the equation, we need to get rid of this negative 1, because the aim is to get this on its own. So to get rid of a negative 1, you need to add 1 to both sides to keep the balance. That will give 3y equals 6. Now, in order to get rid of the 3, to get the y on its own, we need to divide both sides by 3. That will leave us with y equals 2. So we've ended up with a solution of x equals negative 1 and y equals 2. Now, how do we know if we've got the correct solution here? What you can do to double check, you could substitute your answer, your solution, maybe into the second equation, the one that you haven't used. Okay, so let's just do that. So when x is minus 1 and y is 2, let's substitute it into equation number 2. So we have 2x in equation number 2, and we have plus 3y. We also have equals 4. So let's substitute x equals minus 1 and y equals 2 into this equation. So 2 times x, that will be 2 times a negative 1 plus 3 times 2 Let's see what that gives us. Well, 2 lots of negative 1 is negative 2, because a positive times negative is negative, plus 3 times 2 is 6. So negative 2 plus 6 gives 4. Okay, then this solution must be correct because it works for both of these equations. Okay, let's just have a quick look at one more. We're looking for a solution for x and y. To find out what these values could be, we need to find the x value, we need to work out the y value, where when we substitute it back into this equation it gives us 15. When we substitute it back into this side it gives us a negative 19. Now, in order to work out these values, we need to eliminate one of the letters, one of the variables. So we can either eliminate the x or we can eliminate the y. You've got to think about what you can do to eliminate. You can either add the second equation to the first, or you can subtract the second equation from the first, as long as it gets either rid of the x's or it gets rid of the y's. So in this case, let's just start by labelling the equations, equation number 1, equation number 2. So let's see what we can do here. Now, if, as in the previous example, I subtracted the second equation away from the first. Now, if I subtract the second equation from the first, this is what will happen if I subtract all the way through. X take away 3x will give a negative 2x. A 4y take away a negative 4y. The 2 minuses make a plus, so you end up adding the 4y and the 4y. That will give you a positive 8y. 15 take away a negative 19. You end up adding the 2, which will give you... Now here, we've still got the x and we've still got the y. It makes it difficult to solve this equation. So that's why the taking away of the second equation from the first didn't quite work here. So instead, what we need to do in this case, we need to add the 2 equations. Now by adding, let's see what happens. So you've got x plus 3x will give 4x. 4y, add a negative 4y. Let's just put that to one side. You've got 4y, we are adding a negative 4y. Now the plus and the minus here can be replaced by a minus, so you end up doing 4y take away 4y, which gives you 0. So that's just going to be 0 equals 15 add a negative 19. Plus and a minus makes a minus, so that's going to be 15 take away 19, and that will give you a negative 4. Now if 4x is worth a negative 4, x is going to be worth a minus 1, because when you divide both sides by 4, it will get rid of the 4 on the left hand side. A negative 4 divided by 4 will give negative 1. Now, how do we work out the value for y? So we've got x equals 1. What we can do now is substitute x equals a negative 1, which happens to be the same as the first question. X equals negative 1, we can substitute that back into, let's say, the first equation or the second, it doesn't matter which. I'll just go for the first equation. So in place of the x, we're going to put negative 1 plus 4y equals 15. Subtract 1 from both sides by adding 1, because we're aiming to get the 4y on its own. That'll give 16. Now again, to get the y on its own, we need to divide both sides by 4. That'll give y equals 4, because 16 divided by 4 is 4. So we have a solution now where x is worth negative 1 and y is worth 4. Now, just to double check things, this solution has got to work for the second equation as well. So if we substitute that into the second equation, the second equation is 3x minus 4y equals negative 19. So let's substitute minus 1 in place of the x. So you've got 3 times a negative 1, take away from it 4 times a 4, and does it give us negative 19? So 3 lots of negative 1 is negative 3, take away 4 times 4, which is 16, so negative 3, take away another 16, leaves us with a negative 19. So clearly it works, it does match that. Okay, so I hope this helped. Okay, if it did, please subscribe so that you don't miss out on any further videos. Don't forget to click the bell. Okay, that's it for now, and see you in the next video. Bye.